This edition of the match is turning into a classic. Defender and challenger of record cannot be separated. As we head into another day of racing, right now, it's anyone's cup.
The sport's been incredible. We're really enjoying it.
There are some high expectations for this team here in their home waters.
We love racing in front of them. I don't think we feel pressure. We're excited and proud to be doing it.
That deficit is going to be a healthy one in favour of Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli.
You know, it's no secret in that lighter air, these boats dig a pretty big hole in the wind, so it's, you know, definitely hard to keep the game close.
That boat behind is actually hanging in there pretty good in a tough spot.
It just takes one little split-second timing or, you know, lack of wind, and instantly you can be on the back foot in a big way.
Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli will cross the line and go 3-2 up in the match.
No secret in match racing that, you know, it really helps to get off the line, and you know, I think both races today, the race had almost been decided by the pre-start.
Emirates Team New Zealand, they are a team now under some serious pressure.
That sort of anxiety and adrenaline leading into that pre-start just before you enter the box, it's, man, that's what you live for.
Just when Emirates Team New Zealand needed to execute a good start, they've done the job. They need the win to stay in the match.
Both teams are sailing well. We are just waiting for somebody to make a mistake, and it's not happening much.
Emirates Team New Zealand came in trailing by 1. They have produced what you might call a Super Saturday performance when it mattered.
What we've got is a really close yacht race, and it's definitely shaping up to be a pretty interesting series.
It is now 3-all between Emirates Team New Zealand and Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli.
Any day you can wake up and still have a shot at winning an America's Cup race. That's a good day.
No mai, haere mai, live from Aotearoa, New Zealand. It's day 4 of racing in the America's Cup match. Light winds off Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland have produced 3 days of deja vu racing. For 3 days, we've watched 2 teams trade wins. Day 1, 1-all. Day 2, 2-all. Day 3, 3-all. 38 years since the Cup match has been 3-3. How do you win the America's Cup? You don't make a mistake. That's been the biggest takeaway so far. So what does day 4 offer us? Will the deadlock continue, or will we finally get a breakaway? Just some of the questions being asked in a Cup match that's now becoming a nail-biter for fans of both teams. 3-all is the scoreline. Remember, 1st to 7 wins the America's Cup. This afternoon on course A, Luna Rossa have port entry with Emirates on starboard in race 7. Those entry points will swap for race number 8. Your commentary team's ready to go. Double Olympic gold medalist Shirley Robertson on Chase Boat 1. In Heli 1, Anderson Reggio, American Magic testing manager. Beside me, America's Cup helmsman Nathan Outteridge and Kenny Reid, president of North Sails. You know, Kenny, monster local crowd, stunning weather. You think Luna Rossa feel this?
Well, Stephen, if it wasn't clear that Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli is competing in enemy territory, well, it certainly is now. Crowds both on and off the water showed up in the tens of thousands yesterday. The Air Force did a flyby, black shirts on nearly every man, woman, and child. But what the Italians have done so well since the beginning of the trials is to create their own noise, Italian flair, oozing with confidence. And Nathan Outteridge, some visiting teams blink under the spotlight. The Italians do not appear to be one of them.
Well, Kenny, so far so good for the Italians, but the question really is, who blinks first? This morning when I was walking through America's Cup Village, it felt like I was the only person not wearing a black shirt. Kiwi fans are out in their thousands to cheer on their favourite team, and they expect one thing, and that is for the boys in black to bring it home. But they haven't had it their own way. With the racing locked up at 3-3, there is nothing more Emirates Team New Zealand want than to come home with 2 race wins today.
And this is a game of pressure, and no more pressure than the pre-starts.
Well, match racing is about starts. People are kind of saying, well, this is over early, this is over often right off the line. But honestly, Nathan, match racing has always been about pre-starts and winning that start.
It has, and the pressure is starting to build on these 2 helmsmen. You know, Jimmy Spittle versus Peter Burling. An error from one of those guys could cost their team the America's Cup.
Then you spread the boats out. Course strategy has really been very interesting, where the Kiwis just love to spread out the race course. The Italians are more controlling. They try to make the course smaller in a way and eliminate their opponent's options.
So the stakes are high. Race 7 of the America's Cup match is not too far away. This is the Italian lineup for race 7.
Rossa Prada Pirelli have already made quite a statement at this America's Cup, going from average in early days to excellent in the match. We're now in a best of 7, not since Australia 2 versus Liberty. In 1983, has there been a 3-3 scoreline? Yeah, this is a little different, I know, but for Cup fans not aware of the biggest win in America's Cup history, the visiting team won that time, upsetting the longest win streak in international sport. A trend the Italians are trying to continue.
It's a big day. Yesterday was a big day. It was supposed to be a big day. Every day is going to be a big day. And of course, we cannot predict what the result is going to be, but we will fight until the last blood.
New Zealand lines up like this for the opening race of the day.
Emirates Team New Zealand are keeping their fans right on the edge of their seat. As each day goes by, the pressure continues to build. This cup is proving to be a game of inches, and there really is little between these two teams. We have said this time and time again this week. The race is being decided in the starts. Effectively, this means helm versus helm, Spittle versus Burling, a rematch from Bermuda. But both of these guys have had 4 years to prepare for this week. It's crunch time.
Yeah, it's getting more and more tense as the regatta goes on, for sure. But for us, each race is the same, and we learn something every time. So we just try and take that forward to the next one and keep building. And we're happy with our progress, and we look to just keep going forward.
Well, today the racing is again out on the Hauraki Gulf on course A. And, you know, regatta director Ian Murray certainly looking for the best area to find a sea breeze, as well as find a safe spot for the thousands of spectator boats who have come to watch. The word of the day is wind or wind pressure. Will there be enough to get to the 6-knot minimum? We get this race away. We have a 2-minute start sequence, then followed by a 3-lap windward leeward course with 1.5-mile legs, finishing downwind. Current on the course is really kind of negligible from side to side. It's about a half a knot of current, really even across the track, so don't look for this to play too much of a game with the sailors and the boats, but the wind will. The wind is a big factor today. We are right at the bottom end of the wind range, and let's go up to Heli 1, Anderson Reggio, who's with us today, and give us some good news. Anderson, give us a little insight as to what we're looking at out on the water.
Well, if you want the good news, Kenny, if you wanted to get a tan today, you picked the right day. Looking upwind right now, we've been watching this sea breeze slowly build in from shore, working off. I'm looking out towards Tiri Tiri right now, and it's pretty glassy out there, but it's been getting slightly better as time's been going on. A lot of streaks coming down the middle of the racetrack. Looks like we've got a little bit more breeze on the left-hand side, maybe a right-hand shift with it, and a little bit more left-hand shifted towards the bottom of the track. It's going to be all about staying out of the holes that are going to be coming across this course today, for sure.
Anderson Reggio in Heli 1, testing manager for American Magic, going to give us his insights high above the Hauraki Gulf on course A, but on the water is our very own Shirley Robertson. You know, Shirley, it feels like another day of intensity out there. Are you feeling it ratcheting it up?
Certainly, Stephen, and it's just increased in intensity. They've knocked the start back to 16-18. It's right on the edge of racing, and it feels so intense out here. The crowds are massive, and nearly all of them they expect Emirates Team New Zealand to win. They're under plenty of pressure. You know, the margins are so slight, and potential for failure, especially in these light and unpredictable conditions, is huge. Match racing, you know, has always been a bit of cat and mouse, but these two teams really can't decide who's who. And today, Stephen, they're certainly duking it out in front of what could be the biggest ever live crowd for a sailing event. It's all on.
It is race 7 of the America's Cup match. Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli will come in for port, and Emirates Team New Zealand. And there they are doing nothing right now because the wind range has not been met. 6.5 is the lowest end of the wind range. Francesco Bruni and Jimmy Spittle on Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, Peter Burling on the helm of Emirates Team New Zealand. There's confirmation. Just look in the middle of your screen. It's coming in from the north, 6.4 knots. 6.5 is the minimum range. We are just being alerted right now that it has been postponed to a further start time. So we'll confirm with you that in just a moment. The original postponement time was 4:18 local time in the afternoon. It's now going to be pushed out. We'll confirm that with you in just a moment. Nathan Arteridge, Kenny Reid. So the intensity ratchets up and you go, wow, what are we, there's the wind right there. I mean, you've got to have it for at least a good 10 minutes to have it a race in itself. We've been seeing them being towed up and trying to tack, trying to drive. And what do you think we're going to see today?
Well, there is a limit, and the limit is in the rules. So even if Ian Murray, Nathan, wanted to start a race, by rule and by definition, he can't.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the Starboard as we see here right now, it's measuring the wind. It's measuring it at 5.5 meters above the water. He's got measurements on all the marks around there. And as we saw on that graph before, it's hovering right on that limit. You know, it's postponed right now. It's about 1/4 of a knot under what we need. It's been sitting at around 6 to 7. It's sometimes over, it's sometimes below, but it needs to meet the rule. And if it doesn't meet the rule, we can't start the race.
So it's another fly in the ointment, as they say, in a day when we're locked at 3-all in the America's Cup. Actually, these people that are sitting in the America's Cup village want to see racing. Yes, they'll enjoy the weather. Here's hoping that, as we say in this part of the world, they've slipped, slopped and slapped and put their suntan lotion on for a cracking day of racing. But now you've got to think about the sailors and what they're going through. What do you go through at this point, Kenny?
Well, for sure, you get yourself geared up into a frenzy. You're ready to go. You've been training for this moment your whole life. Here you are, 3-3 in the America's Cup. It's only happened once before in history, and then you got to hit the pause button, right? It's a little disheartening, but we've all been through it before. We've all had to deal with this before. The weather is always in a match race. It's not 2 boats, it's 3. The third boat is the weather. They're as controlling as the person that you're sailing against. And Shirley, let's come back out on the water for a second. Give us and all of our viewers at home a little bit better idea of what this rule is and how this wind limit rule actually works.
Well, it's in no way, there's no arbitrary. It's a measured number between 9 minutes and 4 minutes before the start, before it all goes. So, you know, they're just monitoring that all the time. It's at an agreed height as well, because obviously, the higher you measure it, the more wind you have. And I think that's agreed at 5.5 meters on Ian Murray's boat. So both teams agree that's how it's going to be measured and what's going to measure it and how that process is going to work. It's currently sort of pulsing in and out. It's teasing us, Kenny. It's sort of 7.5 knots at its most, and then it just kind of fades away. So we're right on the edge, I think, of something, happening here. And quite rightly, Ian Murray will just be looking at the data and waiting for the right time to get it going.
Thank you very much, Shirley. I'm just thinking as we are looking at these overhead shots here right now, let's go up to the helicopter. Anderson, what does it look like from your perspective? And you think anything's going to pulse in to get us racing?
It's pretty marginal, Nathan. I mean, right now, looking at, you'd be hard-pressed to say anywhere on the race course it's above 8 knots for sure. You're looking probably on average more in the 6 to 6.5 range all the way across. I mean, the most positive sign I have is just looking at the transition from sea breeze to glass, continuing to move a little bit further offshore, a little bit further towards the top of your picture.
Just a cracking look at this course. This is course number A, or course A, excuse me, up and around the Rangitoto and the northern beaches of Auckland City, and there's not much happening right now. The biggest talking point of this match so far has been starts. Win the start, get it right, and you're pretty much guaranteed of winning the race. And it's a real talking point, Kenny.
Well, we found some trends, and we wanted to share these trends with you. If we had a little bit of time, my friend Nathan here and I are going to go through some trends. But the trends are different from what you think. We've had 6 races, and 3 different times there's been very similar style starts that have ended up completely different. So this is race number 2. Race number 2 was actually a push, what we call a push. Peter Burling tacked into a position very high up in the start box. In my mind, got impatient, started to just go after and try to create a hook that was never going to be there, Nathan. And because of this, he got himself in a pretty tough spot.
He did. He exited the tack and he held briefly and he decided, I'm going to push now. But basically, he pushed all the way down to Luna Rossa here and got the boats close together. When you're the windward boat, you've got 2 options. You either want to get in early and make the hook and take that tight to leeward position, or you want to gap off and stay behind and come in late and fast. And this time he pushed and he basically started directly behind the competition, and not really the best start for Emirates Team New Zealand here.
All right, so let's figure out if Peter Burling can learn from his mistake. Look at this setup, almost identical to that last race. This is actually race number 6. Peter Burling tacks into that high position at the top of the screen in the start box, but this time he hangs out. He does not try to force a hook. He does not close the gap between the 2 boats. He hovers up there, and you have 2 choices here. You come ripping into the weather end late, or you wait for your opponent to make a mistake. In this particular case, Nathan, the opponent made a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. Luna Rossa here are very, very slow, and by keeping the separation till a bit later, Peter was just assessing the situation, getting good communication from Glenn Ashby to Lord and Josh Jr., and you can hear them here saying, look, we're going to actually roll them here. So they press, and look at the speed difference, 35 knots versus 19. You're in the box seat here right now, and it was great to see they made an error on the first day, which they've corrected on the 3rd day, and starts are all about errors and minimizing your errors.
And when you talk about making adjustments, it's something that Jimmy Spittle said in the press conference yesterday. You're learning every day, and that's what Emirates Team New Zealand and also Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli are having to do in this critical part of the race. So just confirming right now, race 7 of this 36th America's Cup match has been postponed. We are still unsure and haven't been notified of the potential start time. The first potential restart or race start was 18 minutes past 4 local time. We are still waiting on an official update. So we are currently postponed. And there's just a little indicator of what the wind is doing. It's got to be regularly at the lowest margin of 6.5 knots, and it's sitting well below that at the moment, as you can see, Kenny. So it could be a long afternoon. If at all we get racing, is going to be another question to add some more intrigue into this America's Cup match. All right, let's keep going on this theme, because it is fascinating. The more you listen to Kenny and Nathan, you'll get a greater understanding of why these starts are so critical.
All right, so now we're going to go to another pair of very similar setups. This is race number 3. In race number 3, the Kiwis, what we call allow a gap. The Kiwis and the Italians are going back towards the starting line, but Jimmy Spithill does a really nice job. That lateral distance between the boats is very, very powerful if you're the boat to the right or the boat to weather, as we would call it. You want to keep that gap, because then you have a much better chance of keeping control all the way to the left side of the course. And Nathan, Jimmy Spithill, this was textbook.
Yeah, this one was really good. Again, that wide and right, that gap between the 2 boats right now is critical for the windward boat. If you're the leeward boat here, you don't want to bear away. You don't want to go down the line. You want to get the boats together. But because Team New Zealand are early here, they have to start reaching down the line. This is what they call charging the batteries. You see the boat speed's building here right now. They're pressing, they're building speed, and now it's time on distance. How good are you at judging when to come up and to get going here? And you see right now when the boats come up, there's a reasonable gap between the 2 of them. This allows Luna Rossa to go all the way to the boundary, and if you can remember that race, when they both tack, they get the lee bow and they take control of the race.
Okay, this is a very similar setup, and it's funny how each of these starting styles on each boat really paired up. So this is the second time this same style of start happened. This is actually race number 4. This time, again, Peter Burling may have learned his mistake from that last start, from race number 3. He works really hard at closing the gap and not allowing distance between the two boats, forcing himself into what's called a lee bow position. Remember, Jimmy Spithill thought he could maybe get a hook here. Did Peter Burling sucker him in by putting the boat down on the water for a second? Well, if he did or he didn't, Nathan, it worked, and he got Spithill close and therefore completely controlled the start.
It's really just subtle differences here. The subtle differences is that Peter Burling was a little bit braver. He slowed the boat a little bit, tried to get Luna Rossa a little bit closer here. See how much closer the boats are here all of a sudden. Now, same thing, charge the batteries, bear away, build the speed. He bears away from the line. Jimmy runs the line, Peter comes down lower. This is a slingshot. He goes through the power zone down, through the power zone up, and at the gun, the boats are so much closer that Jimmy has no option now but to tack off because he's going to be affected. And that's just a small change in the starting, which made a big difference in a race result.
Over a half of starting line difference in that first start that didn't work for Emirates Team New Zealand. Less than a boat length and a half between the two in the second. And sure enough, Emirates Team New Zealand controls that race. The leeward boat controlled the race.
Small control, big margin. 1 minute and 3 seconds in the race 4 win for Emirates Team New Zealand. As you can see, pretty much sitting and relaxing. It is summer, of course. Summer has been calling in Auckland City for a long time, so why not enjoy it while you can before the intensity ratchets up. Someone wake up Blair Tuke, please. Let's go back out on the water and check in with Shirley. We talk about improving in increments. Is the weather doing that for us at the moment?
Stephen, I'm laughing at that picture of Blair Tuke relaxing. I mean, can you imagine? There is so much at stake, and these are the hardest conditions. I mean, we can all remember those moments racing in these light conditions, you know, falling off the foils. It's the biggest risk in reward there seems to be in these kind of boats, and they're just chilling out in the shade. I'm sure inside, though, there's plenty of nerves going on. Oh, conditions. I mean, my gut feel, Stephen, is I think it will happen. I mean, we're right at the edge of what the limit is, and it's pulsing in and out. And we've been out here a good hour and a half, and it has increased slowly. When we first came out, it was 4 knots. Now we're at 7. But remember, 6.5 knots is an average, so we do have to see, you know, we have to see numbers over at 6.5 knots at times. So, you know, don't go back to bed if you're watching in Europe. Just make a cup of tea, and I'm sure it's going to happen pretty soon.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Shirley. It's looking a little less streaky from up here in the air at the moment. The big holes that I saw earlier in the middle of the race course seem to be getting filled in a little, gaining in the optimism that this might happen here soon.
I am liking the optimism that I'm hearing from Anderson Rijan and Shirley Robertson on the water. Cup of tea sorts everything out, by the way.
I'm not so sure the Italians aren't back in bed right now. Just set your alarm clocks for 20 minutes and hop back up again.
Okay, let's continue on this theme. Win the start, win the race.
Well, races 1 and 5 also had a really unique quality to them. This was an interesting one. Both of these starts were interesting. We call it high and slow, and high and slow means the boat that gets to leeward here, and even though Emirates Team New Zealand is on the left side of our screen right now, they are going to flip-flop over to the right-hand side of the boat, and we're going to set up what we call a high and slow mode. Nathan, this is a mode that we have always thought that Luna Rossa actually did really well at, but the Kiwis make this one work for some reason.
They do make it work, and I think it's a little bit to do with the fact that both boats are a little bit early, so they've still got to kill a bit of time. Usually when you're coming back to the line and you're early, the boat closer to the line has a tougher job. So right now, Luna Rossa are a little bit close to the line. They have to build speed. So you see here in a minute, both boats push down. You're thinking right now, Luna Rossa are looking great. But what happens here is Team New Zealand build in a straight line. They get their time on distance, they trust their software, and they turn up first, whereas Luna Rossa are about to bear away a little bit further. That turn up right now from Emirates Team New Zealand, the later one from Prada, was the difference in winning the start. The boat speeds of 3 to 4 knots more for Team New Zealand gives them that momentum to slowly roll over the top. And if we remember, Jimmy went for the luff at the end, missed by millimeters, and Team New Zealand win the race.
The build that Emirates Team New Zealand did at the last second before the start was exceptional. It really looked like they built in bad air, and all of a sudden they made it work. Okay, let's switch it around. High and slow. Remember, that is our mode. That is what we're talking about in races 1 and 5. Here we are, set up exactly the same again. Prada to leeward, Emirates Team New Zealand to windward. This one's different, though. Prada gets both boats slow, and it's a little bit lighter breeze, and Emirates Team New Zealand struggles to get up in the foil. They did a masterful job getting up in the foil in that last version of high and slow. This time they can't make it stick, and Luna Rossa makes this high and slow mode really work.
I think one of the big things here is that they both, again, were early, but the wind is so much lighter. So Team New Zealand, if they kept it on the foil, we're going to be really early. So they had to slow down. Both boats slowed down. But to take off is much harder with these smaller foils. You can see Emirates Team New Zealand here trying to take off, trying to get going. The high slow mode of Luna Rossa with the bigger foils was a big advantage to them here. They were able to just slowly grind away. And now Emirates Team New Zealand are building in the bad air. Jimmy just presses on them here, giving them dirty air, and from here on, it looks great. But I think it just comes back to the fact that if you're foiling in the lighter, you've got to keep it foiling. The moment you drop off the foils is the moment you get really vulnerable.
Incredible about how 6 races have really paired up with regards to strategies and pulling off the strategy. Each boat has had a win and a loss in the different strategies, and you know what, Stephen? They're going home and analyzing every single detail, and they're learning.
I have a question for you, because it's being raised around the traps, you might say. Are we seeing speed races or VMG races?
I think we're seeing kind of VMG. Well, VMG is always that's the number that everybody's looking for, whether it's flat out boat speed leading to VMG or not. The fact is that the higher mode is definitely an advantage to the Italians right now. That low and fast mode, they're actually sailing further distance almost every single race on the Kiwi boat when they win, and that's working for them. So they just have completely different sailing styles at this stage.
How about that for a crowd at the tank farm? Then you go into the wonderful America's Cup village, and you see the crowds just waiting for racing and wanting to see something happen, and we are ourselves waiting to see something happen. That bridge, which crosses the viaduct, was absolutely jam-packed as the boats went out, and it is a stunning scene to see. These images going around the world to some 196 countries, and people are going, is this for real? Is this happening? Well, wherever you are watching around the world, this is happening, and we are fortunate and blessed to be in a country right now that can do this and have the America's Cup, the 36th Cup match running as we head towards race 7. Grant Dalton on the right-hand side of your screen. Here's the boss along with Kevin Shoebridge. These are very good, you might say, shore afterguard for this Emirates Team New Zealand team as we think about, can the deadlock be broken today? Can we go into another day, potentially get 2 races and have someone with a 2-race win lead? That is going to be something we will have to wait and see, because waiting is what it's all about. You know, there is a guy called Steve Ferguson, a grinder on board Emirates Team New Zealand, who knows what it takes to win. He's an Olympic swimmer, a kayaker, and a world champion lifesaver. He's got a pretty good sporting DNA, but it was a casual chat with a neighbour that led to his inclusion in Emirates Team New Zealand.
Thanks so much, Steve. It's the big picture. You go out front of the shore.
You know, I was just doing a bit of a reno at the house outside, and my neighbour, he came home one day wearing an Emirates Team NZ top, and I was like, oh, g'day mate, how you going? I didn't know you were doing that. And 4 months later I was trialling, and here we are. Being son of Ian Ferguson, you know, 5-time Olympian, 4 golds, silver, one of the greatest Olympians ever for New Zealand, it's always been something that I haven't looked at as a negative, but a massive positive, because, you know, I've been able to learn so much from him. Not just from what he says, but just watching a champion, growing up around in that presence of someone that dedicates their life to something massive.
When he's a little boy, I'd stand behind him and just say, go. And he would just take off and sprint. He was competitive, trust me, from the word go. When he was being born, the doctor wasn't even there. The nurse was going, hold it, don't, stop.
I've always been associated with the water, and I started swimming when I was 8, and then I swam for 15 years, went to Sydney Olympics, the Commonwealth Games in Kuala Lumpur, and then I changed over to kayaking, followed my dad, lucky enough to make 3 more Olympics, and then 7 years later, back on the water or back on the water. So I had no sailing background. It was really tricky how I would prepare for it. I had no idea what to expect when I first started sailing. So I went out for the first time on a small boat and fortunately had, great tutors with the team, how to move across the boat and do just basic things. I was really nervous, worried I wasn't going to perform on the boat. I didn't know what to expect, but once I got going and had the support of the other boys, I felt really at home and felt like I could definitely do it.
First race, first win, got to hear with that. Good taste of getting out on the water and sailing with some, professional sailors and learning lots while I'm there, so it's bloody good.
In those sports, there's always moments where you're learning to push yourself through every pain barrier you can possibly imagine, and this is no different. Once you start, there's no stopping. You push all the way to the end of the session or end of the day of sailing, and once we start racing, it'll be pushing all the way to the finish. I'm used to a lot of individual sports, and this it's about not just doing it for yourself but actually for your teammates, and that's what's really exciting because you always find another 10% when you've got another guy saying, pull your head in, let's go, push, 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 and then next minute you're doing a PB or something in the training session. So it's pretty exciting and it's a lot of fun.
Very proud of him. So yeah, he's doing what I wish I could do at the moment, but I'm too old to do this.
I'll never forget my first Olympics and world titles and things like that, but to be able to represent New Zealand in a sport like this, like being an All Black, it's pretty bloody amazing, and it's definitely going straight to the pool room with the old accolades.
Glorious day. It's a Sunday afternoon in 2021 here on the Hauraki Golf, and fans just simply want to dance and see some racing. Well, we've just had an update from race committee. They cannot give us an updated start time. The wind limit is still running well below 6.5 knots. It's as simple as that. But let's try and get some sort of idea if there's going to be improvement. Head up to Heli 1 and Anderson at Reggio. Any good news? Do you see improvement, Anderson?
Well, I've been just continuing to watch this line of breeze that's slowly moving offshore. And when I say slowly, it is a space. You got Tiri, that line closing with Tiri slowly, and then also working out towards Whangaparoa. It's looking slightly more firm at the bottom of the racetrack now, but still some big streaks in it off the track, and that average number is what we're worried about at the moment.
I have a question for Nathan. I mean, all the teams have been talking about the gas, the bad air bubble in that pre-start box. I mean, Nathan, if you were starting in even lighter conditions today with the massive risk of falling off the foils, I mean, what kind of strategies would you be thinking of? And do you think we're going to see, a different kind of shape to it?
Yeah, it's a great question, Shirley. I was at the press conference asking the guys that exact question. How bad is this gas and how do you deal with it? And it seems like if you're doing a jibe in the pre-start, you're effectively going to jibe and turn around and come back into that bad wind that you've just created. It gets worse when you are the first boat to jibe back because you've got the port entry followed by the starboard entry really tight on their stern. If they're close together in the light wind, that's like a double the size of the wind shadow or even more. So I expect if they're going to go into pre-starts today and it's this sub 8 knots, that we're going to see tacking, because tacking at least means that you're going to turn into the breeze, you're going to keep the apparent wind up the whole time, and you're not sailing into any bad air. So a jibe in the pre-start is actually going to be, I think, higher risk than the tack. And the other thing that you really want to make sure is that you don't turn back too early, because if you turn back too early and you're trying to wash off speed, you're going to have to pull yourself off the foil. So the last thing you want to do is do that, drop off the foil and then try and take off. As we can see, they've been towing onto the foil all day. I think under 8 knots even, you need to get towed to get going. So it's all about staying on the foil in this pre-start. Anyone who's sailed a moth or a little foiling boat before knows that once you're up and foiling, you've got the apparent wind, you're going, it's great. You fall off, it's a long time to get going once again.
And the one word that everybody will be thinking in the back of their heads right now, particularly the sailors and those around the viaduct area, patience. You just have to be patient because the wind potentially will come at some stage today. All America's Cup sailors are passionate about the ocean, but some are more comfortable in the water than they are on the water. For instance, take Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli's Davide Cannata. He's a 5 kilometre, 10 kilometre, 20 kilometre open water swimmer. For him, it's literally a walk in a park because he is a nautical marathon man.
We are in the Mediterranean, so it's a very beautiful sea to swim. Especially here in Sardinia, the waters are always really beautiful and clean. You have beautiful landscape to swim next to, like this place. I created like a connection with this place. I swam probably all over the island here because of races, because of just me hanging around and trying to find better spots to swim and to enjoy the nature. I'm from Cagliari, and when I was really young, I started to compete in the long distance races. That means 15K or more in open water. I still enjoy it a lot, honestly, even if I'm not competing anymore. Sometimes I just relax, just taking a dive and swimming for even hours. You have time to think. You're just completely alone inside the water and you're just like by yourself. My home is probably inside the water, not outside. I feel like much more comfortable inside the water sometimes. I just feel good. I found the opportunity to join Luna Rossa for this campaign, and I'm super pumped to do it. Staying inside of the water or just above it on a flying boat is not obviously the same thing, but I feel the same way, you know.
You have to be a very strong individual to be an ocean swimmer. Our very own Shirley Robertson on Chase Boat 1 is an accomplished ocean swimmer. In fact, I'm told she swam the Solent. See, all these little secrets you just find out about this incredibly talented international broadcast crew. Another wonderful day on the Hauraki Gulf. There is the spectator fleet that is lined up around course number A. And we are still in a postponement mode. You might say we're in a, well, I was about to say we're in a displacement mode, but Emirates Team New Zealand are thinking differently.
Be interesting to find out if they got up on their foils with help with the tow boat or if they got up on their own. That's really, Nathan, like I think you said a few minutes ago, that's the key, right? If these things can pop out of the water on their own, then we got a real sailboat race. If they can't, oof, it's a little marginal.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think any of these teams want to do a race if they don't think they can get up themselves. If you have to tow up to get going, you see the wind speed there, you know, 6 knots on the starting, overall it's sort of still hovering in that 6.5. Now, I believe it's around 8 knots that you really need to get going. And Anderson, maybe you know a little bit more about the wind speeds these boats need to take off, being the testing manager for American Magic. Can you give us an insight as to what is the bottom wind speed for a takeoff unassisted?
Yeah, it's going to vary a little bit for each of the boats. It's all about generating enough power to get to that magical number that gets you up and going, and that magical boat speed. You know, everybody would probably be pretty comfortable being able to take off without issue in 8 knots or so, and definitely for sure, Nathan, below that, you want to be able to string a really good acceleration together, which involves a ton of coordination, way more complexity than anybody really wants to admit, to be able to pull it off in sub 8 knots for sure. I think our lowest was somewhere in the 7.2 range on American Magic for being able to get up and going.
Hey, Anderson, just thinking about it, you know, in a smaller boat like a Moth or something, you could pump, you could flap the sail, use your body, try and ooch the thing onto the foil. What kind of techniques can be used in a boat like this to generate the power to take off?
yeah, pumping something like this that's this size and getting a good rock to it is really, really hard to do. You know, your flap doesn't even really impact the heel of the boat until you're at a certain boat speed of, you know, call it 12, 14, 15 knots. So you can't really generate much of a pop with your foils. So you really just have to be able to generate a lot of power with your sail plan. And if you can do that down low without generating a healing moment.
Race 7 to go with a start time of 16:52 in about 11.5 minutes.
There's the most encouraging words we've heard in the last 40 minutes. And that is 16:52, which is 4:52 local time. We might get racing, and those people might just feel like waving their flags and waving their arms and getting just a little bit excited because there you go, just like that. How good are they, hey? New Zealand flags everywhere, and look, there's Luna Rossa flags in there as well, and that's the reason maybe we're feeling the wind. You know, hope is not a strategy. To win, you have to believe, and no one knows that better than Emirates Team New Zealand's Finn Henry. The South Island chippy joined the team as a builder, but he harboured a secret he kept hidden in his wallet.
To represent New Zealand, that's always an absolute dream of any Kiwi. We're such a proud sporting country that I feel like I'm trying to represent the country as best I can, and you know, I'm so proud to be here. For me, that's it. It's just, I'm honestly so proud to be part of a team that can call themselves Team New Zealand, you know. Prior to this, I was down in Christchurch building with a mate. That's what initially got me into the shore crew was, yeah, working as a builder.
Still hadn't really registered that I could be trying to get on the boat. I was just focused on what I was doing in the shore crew, and I was honestly stoked to be doing that. Like, that's as much of a part of the team as anything, you know, like that's super important and honestly still really hard. And I had Louis telling me to start, you know, just doing little bits of grinding here and there, and then gradually progressed through that from kind of doing it for fun to him saying, oh, you should put a bit more in and try and do what we do. Just didn't know which way it was going to go, and then yeah, gradually little bits sort of fell into place along the way, and then I started doing the grinding. It has always been like a goal in the back of my mind, but I've never thought it would happen. It's been one of those ones where I just said, I wrote it down when I was at uni in Dunedin at some point.
It was copying Richie McCaw, actually. I think it was his dad made him write down all his goals. I don't know, just a way to validate what you're actually trying to achieve, you know, in the next 5 to 10 years and sort of break down how you're going to do it, etc. I wrote the goal that I wanted to be in Team New Zealand as a sailor, and it was one of those really ambitious goals that you wouldn't dream of telling anybody, and I haven't told anybody probably until now because it's happened. I'm trying to put on as much weight as I can, and so yeah, I've definitely gotten a bit heavier and probably a bit more stocky, I'd say. I don't think it's done anything for my appearance. I just feel like I look shorter now than I did before, probably. It's just so much of an upper body exercise that, yeah, you just find yourself getting wider and wider, and you know the legs start looking skinnier and skinnier. But you know that's just the nature of it, eh? I know people that would call me really lucky. But honestly, I felt prior to this America's Cup, I would have said I was the opposite, or quite unlucky, you know, and having that list makes it sound like I planned this thing the whole time to jump into the sailing team, and it just absolutely wasn't the case. Like, I knew that was there in the back of my mind, but I thought that it would be maybe the campaign after or the campaign after if I'm really lucky. It sounds cheesy, you know, that's what you always hear, and people say, oh, you know, like, if you believe it, you can do it, and that's kind of what I wanted to test out. And that's what sort of drove me through that first year when I was in the shore crew and I was training, was just, well, I'm just going to see if what they say is right, you know? I'm just going to see if I keep doing this, will it eventually happen? If I was going to advise anybody, it was just to seriously bite off the biggest bite you possibly can, get yourself in a sink or swim situation and just bloody try and swim, and you probably will. I think you only make it easier for the people you're competing against if you opt out of taking on those challenges. You know, I think the best thing you can do for yourself is just absolutely be as optimistic as you can and just go for it, yeah.
10.5 minutes to go, or just under 10.5 minutes now. It's the start for race 7 in the America's Cup match 2021 has now been pushed back to 4:55. That's 4:55. The wind limit's still not doing its job. That virtual eye look at the course, it really does make a special scene, particularly when you see the framing of that magnificent spectator fleet that's been out there for a couple of hours. I've got to say, Kenny and Nathan, when you see them all trailing out and like the big, a train of yachts and boats and motor launches going out, it really does get you pumped for a race.
Well, it does, and it's really interesting. The shape of the spectator crowd is definitely a shape that regatta director Ian Murray would have built into his mooring pattern. You see, he has a chance to bring the top of the course, or at the very top of our screen, over to the right if the breeze fills in further right, or obviously quite a bit to the left if the breeze fills in left. They've done a nice job. The spectators are a little further away from the actual race course, but they're pretty close nonetheless, and it gives him options to set up a proper race course with this kind of finicky building sea breeze.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You see how many boats are out there. The wind actually sees that as a wall. And when it comes to those boats, it actually lifts up and over, and it's more important in these lighter winds. When it's so light like this, the wind that is just filtering in just sees it and just goes, no way I'm going through that. I'm going to go up and over. So what you might see on Emirates Team New Zealand right now is there's a wand at the top of the mast measuring wind speed and one at the bow at the bottom. And I bet you there's a very big difference in wind speed top to bottom. And
yeah, Nathan, you're right. The wall of boats up there on the top right-hand side of the course is definitely bringing a big hole down the track. But fortunately, for the way that Ian has his course configured now, for that axis, that big hole is well off the course, nothing that they'll have to worry about. But if this thing goes 20 degrees to the right, then you're going to have to worry about those spectators impacting the course for sure.
Well, it's beginning to feel like it all might happen here. It's just pulsing in. The air's got a bit cool as well, which sort of feels like, it's a thermal wind. It looks like we've got 7 knots most of the time. So we're right on the edge of having this happening. Both teams look absolutely ready to go. The jibs are up, the helmets are on. They want to race.
As we do too, Shirley. 9 minutes and 45 seconds and counting for start and race number 7 of this 36th America's Cup. 4:57 now, the official start time, if we get racing and the wind holds up. Those people in the tank farm area, which is a wonderful place to hang out, are being very, very patient. They're quite relaxed too, which is nice. And I tell you what, outside at the moment, it is a very warm day, but lots of hats on, lots of sunblock.
Lots of cold beverages.
Lots of cold beverages, and why wouldn't you? Flags just keeping you cool and ready to wave whatever team wins if we get racing today. Just a quick question. Racing can't happen after 6. We might just get one racing today.
Yeah, that's a possibility. We'll take anything we can get right now, no question about it.
well, that'd break the deadlock, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
All right, a little over 8 minutes to go to start in race 7 of the America's Cup. Okay, let's turn the conversation to an unforgettable America's Cup moment. 2013, the world witnessed one of the greatest ever sporting comebacks. Team New Zealand looked to have the America's Cup in the bag, but Jimmy Spittle had other ideas.
Well, San Fran actually reminds me a lot of this campaign. The boats are super physical and the design is so new.
Emirates Team New Zealand are going to go 7-1 over Rossa.
We started off that competition heavily underprepared compared to the Kiwis, who really had, you know, a dream run in terms of their preparation and how they spent their time. Our recon team was saying we were going to be fast upwind, slow downwind and reaching. In the first race, it was the complete opposite.
The first race of the America's Cup goes to Emirates Team New Zealand, 2-0 over Oracle Team USA. Race number 3.
Race number 5, it will be the Kiwis striking again. It is an absolute Kiwi whitewash.
We definitely needed to regroup. We needed to go back and really have a good look at, you know, how do we learn from this and how do we rebound?
I think the question is, imagine if these guys lost from here. What an upset that would be.
I was just getting sick and tired of listening to the press talking to us about losing.
And Oracle Team USA will win the first race of the day. Race number 9 belongs to the Americans.
It's all good and well to come out and talk the talk on the land, but at the end of the day, They're not going to hand you the trophy for that.
So the Americans will come to the line and they will extend this series. Oracle Team USA gets the win in race 12.
It was just multiple things that we were changing, multiple ideas or concepts that we were trying, sailing techniques. The one consistent theme was that no one was giving up and that we were willing to just be on this endless search for more boat speed. You'd have to say Team New Zealand definitely one of the most successful teams in the America's Cup. Just going head to head against some real champions was, well, it's the ultimate.
Check that out, that's close, isn't it?
I truly believe that both teams went out every single day believing they could win.
Going really well, fully foiling upwind.
And both teams left everything on the water.
Their wing didn't pop, so their wing is popped the wrong way. It has not actually gone over to the new side until right there.
The Stars and Stripes say it all. The comeback of 2013 is complete. America's Cup will stay in America.
For every single person out there, whether you're on the winning or losing team, it meant a lot. You know, I mean, this is a big chunk of your life. That's what makes it so special, is you really care about it. Like any great sporting team or great sporting battle, you know, that's what you live for.
Jimmy Spittle, one half of a double helming crew with Francesco Bruni. But he is such an important part of this Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli operation. Starts, just think the starts. We have just had an update from the race committee and the start is postponed. The last time they gave us, and we didn't give this one to you, was at 5 p.m. local time. The wind is not playing ball out on course A at the moment. You can see that glorious spectator feeling. It just makes a beautiful picture when you see the virtual eye course and everything else that goes with it. But here we go, team. We're just going to have to sit in displacement mode and go nowhere, Kenny, at the moment. So, again,
beautiful day is not what the sailors are concerned with right now. I think, so, Nathan, this is a real... How is everybody out there complaining about the heat? Why aren't these guys... You're in these foiling boats all the time. How are they not cooking in these helmets and suits on board the boat?
I never understand why, as a sailor, you would stand in the sun if you had the choice to stand on the other side of the main and get out of it. You know, sailors naturally spend so much time in the sun. Yes, they've got their helmets, their goggles on, they're trying to protect themselves from the sun, but the whole goal now is to just use as little amount of energy as possible, get out of the sun, get in the shade, keep cool, and just relax. And at any moment, knowing you got to turn it on again. So, you know, if I was on one of those boats, I'd either be the other side of the boat in the shade, or I'd be going into the chase boat and having a drink and having a chat.
You see, the next big lightweight innovation for sailors of this type of thing would be cool suits. Cool suits like they race car drivers have. You have a cool suit.
Yeah, it's a fine line between needing a cool suit and then 20 seconds later you're foiling at 40 knots and underwater and freezing to death. So it's...
Yeah, no, I'll take that one on the chin.
Maybe there's an electrocution problem too?
No.
Are they battery powered?
Good question, Kenny. You put me on the spot again. Not so sure. they pump dry ice through the whole suit to keep a race car driver cool. Let's not get down that rabbit hole. Just a reminder that the start is postponed. Let's go up high with Anderson Reggio and Heli 1. Anderson, what are you seeing? Tell us.
Well, I'll tell you, Ian's picked the right location. Looking back over towards the back paddock, course E right now, and course definitely wouldn't be happening if we were over there. So it's just a matter of putting our patient pants on and hanging out and waiting for this to get above that threshold. He's in the right spot. It's just a matter of time.
Shirley down on Chase Boat 1. I got a completely non-sailing question, but what's the vibe around the spectator fleet? You're pretty close to it all.
They're having the best time, Stephen. And many of them have been out here for hours already, and they're swimming and singing and music, and it's a great party scene. A lot of Emirates Team New Zealand flags. And they're beginning, I think, to get a little bit tense. You know, we're waiting for something to happen. We've just been beside the Italian boat. You know, they're all ready to go. They're on the tow already. You know, so at any moment, they're about to take off. I mean, I'm just sort of trying to put myself in that position. The stress of having to race in these really light, difficult conditions at a moment's notice. is pretty full on. It's a good job Jimmy Spittle's known as the Iceman.
Hey, Shirley, have you been by the Kiwi boat? We saw the week prior to this event starting, they came out with a rather large downwind sail, a sail people were calling the Whomper. Have there been any signs, any sailbags going back and forth like they might be dragging a big Code Zero onto that thing?
We've not seen anything, but you know, the Kiwis don't give much away. And one thing the viewers can look out for, actually, if there's some guys in harnesses, you have to wear a harness to go onto the foredeck. There's a red line on the foredeck. So if we see some of the sailors wearing harnesses, it means that, you know, they're thinking about, they're ready to put up this Code Zero kind of sail. The Italians call it a kind of wind seeker. It's only to be used really in conditions like this, but it could really be a powerful thing to have in your armory, particularly on that final last leg if the wind drops and you have to finish the race in the time limit. Remember, these races maximum of 45 minutes long, and for the first leg 12 minutes, so you know they've got to get around the course.
Nathan, that surely makes a great point. This wind seeker, this big Code Zero sail, some call it the Whomper here in town. I think that's a last, like Shirley just mentioned, I think that's a last leg sail. That's a sail you put up in the last leg. If the race is about to run out, that 45 minutes could possibly be running out of, because, you know, think about it, twice in recent history, the Kiwis have lost races because the time limit, once in San Francisco, of which if they finish that race in San Francisco, they win the America's Cup, by the way. And we saw in the Christmas Cup, in the World Series event, they came within about 1 minute of finishing a race. So I think a typical Kiwi situation is they try to dot every I, cross every T, and they just figured they might have a last leg sail to throw up and make a time limit.
Beautiful spectator fleet who love innovation and ingenuity. It's always been part of Emirates Team New Zealand's DNA. In 2017, they came up with a bold idea. We talk about cyclors, part sailor, part cyclist. Spearheading that cycle of change was Kiwi Olympian, the Rhino, Simon van Veldhoven.
The cycling system was pretty easy to keep secret when you just don't talk about it. They asked me, is it possible? And I was like, yeah, why not?
Two very different power systems. They're using their legs on New Zealand and Oracle's using their arms.
All I could do was clip in and turn pedals, and I assumed the power gain was a lot more than what the arms could produce. And if you had half a brain, you would obviously look into using your legs versus your arms, but yeah, not every team pushed it all the way, really.
Still, the cyclors put it in. Every last ounce of their being.
I wouldn't say it was the crux of Bermuda, but I think it gave us a bit of a boost knowing that we had more horsepower than other teams and we could sail a little bit harder and push every other department right to the edge.
The America's Cup wrestled from the USA by Burling's men in black. The trophy belongs to New Zealand.
It was just good to win it and knock it off, really. Bring it back here to Auckland, so I was just glad the cycling system didn't fail. That was a relief for my end. The team's really good fun and just so cutting edge and exciting to be around and be part of it. I thought it'd be mad to not give it a go, and yeah, just trained for 2 years and came back to the team when they were hiring grinders and managed to pass the fitness test. Yeah, I did doubt it, but I thought I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't try, so I gave it everything and still giving it everything because there's always room for improvement and learning, so just keep pushing to make sure the boat's never without power on race days. So that's probably the most competitiveness of all of us, is making sure Pete or Blair or Glenn never request more power boys on the water during racing. Going fast is fun, so when you're out there on the water and you're ripping around the harbour and even just watching the boat from the chase boat as well, it's pretty impressive that 100 pretty simple Kiwis can put together such a beast that can go so fast with the power of the wind. So it's pretty humbling to be part of. I'm addicted to the event and the sport, so it's just bloody awesome. If you're doing an individual sport, Olympic medals, like it is the pinnacle, but for a team event, it's definitely a massive thing to be part of and a massive event to defend for your country.
Spectator feet lined up and waiting for their start in race 7 in the match of 2021. And we still have no sign. Postponement, no official start time in the race at the moment. Let's go up high with Anderson Reggio and get his thoughts on Heli 1. Tell us some good news.
Oh, this spectator fleet that's come out for today has got to be one of the largest gathering of boats I've ever seen for a sailboat race. It's we still have some good reasons here to be optimistic. I'm looking at Seabreeze, and now looks like it's filled, continuing to work offshore nearly all the way to Whangaparoa finally. And you would hope that once it does link out past beyond Tiri, it would be able to pull in something stronger. A little concerned about some clouds to our southeast, but again, if it's going to happen anywhere, it's going to happen pretty much right where Ian's put this track.
Thank you, mate. We are seeing things start to happen on the boats, and it looks like they're both being towed, or at least Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli. We have just been watching a story, Nathan Arteridge, on the Rhino. Of course, that's Simon van Veldhoven Rhino, because he was such a beast on the Kirin tracks in Japan. He was just a beast of a man. But when the Cyclors came to be part of America's Cup, what were your first thoughts?
I think when the rule came for Bermuda for the America's Cup and the catamarans, most teams looked at the cycling option. I know with Artemis, we definitely looked at the cycling option. Originally, they were meant to be the 62-foot catamarans, and we thought we could package, bikes into those boats. When it went a little bit smaller to the 50, less people, we pursued it, but we never followed through with it. And in the end, obviously, Team New Zealand used it. And everyone says it was the big advantage that they could produce more power. And sure, maybe legs make more power than arms. But for me, in talking to some of the guys, having a chat to Glenn Ashby and hearing what he had to say about how it all worked, it was the fact that they could free up the arms of the cyclists to do things, their hands. So the grinders on our boat had foot buttons, they had knee buttons to adjust the sails and trim the sails. But your hands, you have way more finesse.
We're going to give this another go. Start clock is set for 17:15.
We're on again here in a minute. I'll just continue on this point. If you're using your hands, you could allow someone like Blair Tuke, Andy Maloney to get involved in helping fly the boat while still producing power. So they were producing power while sailing the boat, whereas the front 4 guys on our boats that were grinding, they couldn't have that finesse with their toes that you could with your fingers. And I think, for me, that was probably a bigger advantage than the extra power.
When these guys showed up in New Zealand with their cycles, was that a shock to you, or did you have spies that had told you that it was coming?
We saw the test boat that they were sailing on was always grinding, and they never showed any sign of cycling. The first glimpse we saw of cycling was when they launched the race boat. That was definitely a shock to us, because that team is tight. They don't let any information out of that team, and doesn't matter who you ask in the team, they were tight-lipped the whole campaign.
I got a question for you though, Kenny, being the pure sailor, right? You see someone cycling on a boat, what do you think?
Oh, I think it was kind of a invigorating shock to the sailing world. It was something new and different. Listen, the catamarans were kind of crazy in their own right. Certainly the catamarans out in San Francisco just started this foiling craze around the world. But innovation is just fun. Innovation is something to talk about. These boats are the perfect example of innovation. I just thought it was fun to report on something completely new and different. It was also unique that only one boat tried it, and sure enough, turns out it kind of worked.
So you didn't think it was a sailing sacrilege?
No. There's no such thing as sailing. If you believed in sailing sacrilege, you wouldn't be foiling in 75-foot monohulls, I'll tell you that. It's just innovation, and more innovation, and you know what? I'm all for it. Keep it coming.
And I think these AC-75 foiling monohulls are spectacular, and I've got a lot of friends that weren't really into sailing. As soon as these boats came along, they're going, we cannot wait. And the staggering thing, going faster than a true wind speed, is stunning. And that's what we want to see in race number 7. They're saying a new start time locally of 5:15 local, 5:15 local. Cross your fingers. The oldest and greatest obsession in international sport has and continues to have a powerful hold on some of the world's richest men. The principal of Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, Patrizio Bertelli, has spent 20 years trying to get his hands on the old mug. It's a very special passion for the head of the Italian fashion house Prada.
But Patrizio is just passionate. I mean, he loves sailing. Is everything he does in any boat he has or he owns. He's pushing 100%, even with this classic yacht. When he goes racing, he want to go out racing to win the race, not just to take part of the event.
Beh, la classe 12 metri è un'imbarcazione storica, anche se è una barca lenta, è una barca tecnica, è comunque una barca in cui bisogna avere una grande dimestichezza sulla parte tecnologica delle manovre. Mi ricordo che qualcuno commentava, diceva si spende tanti soldi per andare pianissimo. Infatti è vero, non vanno forti. Però sono barche in cui si può fare match race, c'è tutta un'adrenalina per quanto riguarda il rapporto tra la barca, tu che sei sopra e poi la sfida che hai con gli altri timonieri.
He's really passionate. He loves what he's doing. He will never do the cup just for commercial. Doesn't need that. He does that because he loves to do that, and the day doesn't find anymore the appeal from a technical and from a passion point of view, we'll stop to do the cup. I'm sure about that.
Ma nell'America's Cup rendeva speciale soprattutto per i velisti, perché era chiaro che tutto il percorso dei 12 metri, poi delle barche successive, ha attratto i velisti perché era l'espressione delle barche più tecniche, anche dove il velista si poteva maggiormente cimentare col match race. L'evoluzione che ha avuto dopo i catamarani è un'altra cosa rispetto all'America's Cup tradizionale. Vediamo cosa si può recuperare dello spirito di una volta. E comunque il problema è sempre stato legato che le barche erano barche particolarmente innovative, anche J classe nel 38, nel 40, un impegno perché in sostanza poi vince solo una barca, quindi non è un torneo, è una vittoria fino a se stessa. Ecco, l'attrazione è sempre questa.
I really would like to see what he will do the day we'll have the cup in his hand. He will never tell you, obviously, but he will be the happiest guy in the world.
Peter Blake mi mandò una lettera dicendo che il segreto della Coppa America è farla all'infinito fin quando uno non si vince. Mi sembra che noi stiamo battendo questa strada. Quindi vince sempre la barca più veloce, questo è il fatto fondamentale, non c'è ombra di dubbio. E quindi spesse volte uno pensa di aver fatto un grande sviluppo tecnico, ma c'è qualcuno che l'ha fatto più di te, questa è la verità. Poi non c'è altri segreti.
There's the word that's been sitting around for about an hour or so, postponed. Still no start time on this 7th race of the America's Cup match and the 36th America's Cup on the Hauraki Gulf. We will just have to wait and see. Gotta say, they call him Mr. Bertelli because I said Patrizio, I actually felt like I'd committed some sacrilege because you hang around the Luna Rossa, they say, excuse me, it's Mr. Bertelli. But for guys like that to stay in the game, it shows the draw of the old mug, doesn't it?
Oh, he's been around for a long, long time. And let's go to somebody who actually knows him maybe a little bit better than we do. Keko, we were just seeing a shot about your boss, Mr. Bertelli. And tell us a little bit about his passion, his leadership, everything that he has brought to the table.
Oh, first of all, we love him.
I bet you do.
I mean, he's a very passionate sailor. He loves sailing. On any form. That's what I really like about him, because he's a little bit like me. He likes old boats, he likes modern boats, He likes slow, he likes fast boats. He likes really sailing 360 degrees. So I think that's, I can see myself as well having the same feeling. So yeah, that's a good one.
Hey, Francesco, what do you think he'd be thinking right now if he was on the chase boat alongside you? What kind of words of wisdom would he be giving to you today?
He would be nervous, I think, like we are. But no, he honestly is never. He likes to talk after the racing. He likes to give us advice after the racing. Before the racing, he's very quiet. Usually.
Have you been talking to him during this whole process? And tell us, is this killing him not to be here?
Yeah, yes, I think so. He really would like to be here. He would not like the quarantine idea, the 14 days in the hotel. But he would love to be here. Yes.
And are you
with this business, it's not easy.
Are you speaking to him? Like how often do you personally speak with him?
I do speak with him, lots of messages, and from now and then he calls when he has time. Yeah, he's following very closely the racing.
Francesco, we've been talking about professional sailors having just to sit back and wait, and just wait and wait. And what's going through your head and the crew's head about this delay at the moment?
You know, there's not much you can do when the weather is not cooperating. You just need to stay calm and relax and focus. And to be fair, here is actually easier because we only have a 2-hour window to have a race. When you do Olympic classes and other stuff, sometimes you wait for more than 6-8 hours. So yeah, we know that we have to stay concentrated for those 2 hours, and a little bit before that, because we had a little bit of a warm-up before the first attempt from the race committee. But yeah, it's not too bad.
All right, buddy, thanks so much for giving us your time. Maybe, just maybe, we get some racing.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Francesco Brini, one half of the helming team from Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. Well, look, there's a little wind vane doing its thing. Hopefully we're going to get some racing, and it has to happen before 6 p.m. local time. In the meantime, let's give you some racing. We're going to go back 24 hours to race 5.
So what I'm most interested in today is what is the starboard entry boat going to do to try and break this curse of the starboard entry? Is it a myth or is it real? And I think in these lighter winds, that double maneuver gets really tough.
We've already seen a little bit of a break in the action where Prada is actually sticking themselves well down to leeward or to the right side of Emirates Team New Zealand, kind of taking almost like a blocking move towards the jibe that is likely coming on the red boat.
Easy leading, easy leading.
Board out, 2, 1, yep. No, turn over, Lenny. Copy. 24 knot. On the wind here. What's going up?
Both boats have gotten quite slow here, Nathan. Really slow and dangerously close to being off the foils.
There you see that shot there. 20 knots is about the bottom speed that can keep it on the foil. Prada with the bigger foils can hang there a little bit longer. Both boats really struggling right now, or just early and killing time.
Trimming up. I might hear a little.
We will gain time on
the gas if we can.
Luna Rossa looking very strong at the moment.
We'll gain time on the wave, okay?
Question is, are they early?
Kiwis are just trying to get up in the air right now, Nathan. I'm not so sure they're out of the water yet, and they're using that kind of that 90-degree wind angle to pop out of the water. Got them right down into bad air and in a really bad spot.
Okay, just charge here, charge the pass them along, trimming up slowly. No worries. Little up, trimming up, go. Yeah, we're just going to get to taking speed. Yeah.
Time to go racing. It's race 5, the 36th America's Cup match. And Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli across the line first.
Wow.
A little longer then, we hold. Just a little.
The smaller foils in the lighter winds and the pre-start, and you can't get caught slow. That was leading back a little bit early on Emirates Team New Zealand. having to go slow, dropping off the foils, and having the smaller foils and struggling to take off.
We all knew that one of the factors going into this was going to be the foil size and the ability of this boat to actually do down speed maneuvers in the pre-start. Would that be an advantage? Could they put themselves in a position to make it an advantage? They did, and they absolutely crushed that start.
So much for that port tack entry favour.
Wow.
A massive error by Pete. I mean, you heard the slight panic in Blair Tuke's voice, you know, saying, you know, we're really, really early for this. And he knows that they have smaller foils and yet, you know, slowed down. A huge error. But it's closing up here, Kenny. This is far from over.
The port tack entry boat, Team New Zealand, gets to choose when they come back. And Jimmy Spill and Francesco Bruni said, no, we're going to go back a little bit earlier because we know we can handle sailing slower on our bigger foils. So they happily took the lead. Both boats got really slow, and then they just climbed up out of that 17 knots, got on the foil, and great judgment by Francesco Bruni, Jimmy Spittle, and the whole crew on board. There's more than 2 people on that, but man, it was played really well in that start for those guys.
Yeah, just keep an eye on him after the barrelway. I'll start your turn on the mark.
Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli go around the top mark. Cool and confident. Just listen to the comms going on. They are so relaxed. And really, on the first leg, Kenny, when you take a look at this, that difference is going to be a healthy one in favour of Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli.
They're right down to every little detail as well. You heard Francesco Bruni talk about, let's continue here on port jibe, and we actually give them dirty gas. By gas, they mean disturbed air coming off the sails as they're passing, going upwind. So no matter how far ahead you are, you're always trying to make it a bigger distance.
Turning down.
And I was quite surprised, Kenny, that they headed to the right-hand side of the track, you know, tucked right in under those spectator boats. There's like a good 1 or 2 knots different at the top of the track, and down the bottom it's much more even. And I could see that on I have the wind speeds coming off the 2 yachts. And Emirates Team New Zealand on the left-hand side of the track did have a knot or 2 more. They're also going faster.
There's 32 seconds at the previous mark. We know that it might be maybe a little bit less with the downwind speed of Emirates Team New Zealand, but doesn't matter. There's 1 boat in front and 1 boat chasing, and you know which way that is.
I had to chat with some of the Luna Rossa guys today about how come the hook never works in that pre-start scenario, and they said just that the gas, the disturbed air is so big that you never cut through it successfully. So I think it's become much more of an issue than perhaps they thought it was at the beginning of racing.
Yeah, I saw it a little more even.
Yeah, I think there is more even at the top.
I'll tell you what, the meters behind are not getting larger. They're actually just kind of hanging in around 200, maybe even a little under right now. So, again, the Kiwi boat has a fast mode. We know that. It always sails more distance, but man, are they fast, both upwind and downwind.
About to complete the halfway stage in this 5th race of the America's Cup match in 2021 out of the Hauraki Gulf, this Course A, in front of a magnificent spectator fleet, and it's all Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli at the moment. Remembering it is a 2-all scoreline. How much of a psychological advantage will it be again to win first race of the day? Because they seem to have a little bit of a habit of doing that. Looking at the clock on the bottom right of the screen, it appears that there's been small gains by Emirates Team New Zealand. 32 seconds at the bottom gate. They've picked up 10 seconds. That's a good upwind gain.
Talk about protecting the left side of the course. All those blue dots is Luna Rossa. All those yellow dots are the Kiwis. Luna Rossa wanted the left-hand side of the course, and they took it almost exactly down the middle of the race course. Phenomenal. That's great. That's great. A great show by Virtual Eye there, guys. That's match racing.
We keep using this one word, but flawless still comes to mind when you think about Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli. It is Wow, I mean, and it goes right back to before the Prada Cup final. The one key area they improved on was communication and getting everything right, and they are just rolling it right now as Emirates Team New Zealand finally get to that mark rounding and start the penultimate leg of race number 5 in this America's Cup match.
This has become a kind of... We don't need commentators today. I'll tell you what's going to happen. They're going to tack on them and protect the left side of the race course. Done. Thank you.
Almost through the forward side of it here, eh?
When you talk about control, it seems to come, you look at this boat, and when they're in front, they always look in control. They're not looking over their shoulder at all.
Still 200 meters, though, in a fast boat on a run to go. This is not breathe easy weather yet, if you're an Italian fan.
I'm going to say right now that this boat is being sailed beautifully, and they are, again, in control. They have dictated terms from the get-go.
Not their best rounding, though, I have to admit.
27 seconds at the 4th mark. 23 at the final mark before they head home.
I don't know, you got to say, if you are able to close a bit of time down going upwind while sailing in someone's dirt, your boat's going fast.
We go all the way at the moment, boys, in this lefty.
Luna Rossa, they've bossed this race course, haven't they? They've gone exactly where they wanted to go. Currently just right down the middle and the maximum pressure. It's hard to see, barring a mistake or, you know, a bit of a massive error by Luna Rossa, it's hard to see how the Kiwis are going to get past.
A little pressure on now. And a little lefty again.
When you think that they are very close to snatching their 3rd win of an America's Cup match, a team that has had its confidence building and building and building, how big a deal now as you head into race number 6? It feels a bit like moving day in the Golf Masters. When you want to make a play, you make the big play. Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli will cross the line and go 3-2 up in the match. And that win in race 5 of the America's Cup match in 2021 was an 18-second win by Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. It's 3-all. Their wins by 7 seconds, 37 seconds, and 18 seconds. So, as you can see, still race postponement, 5:22 local time on a Sunday evening, and that's what you do when you're not racing. You sit back and talk to your 49er pal, think about the Tokyo Olympics and how that's going to work out. Peter Burling and Blair Tuke joining us now live off Emirates Team New Zealand. Bit of a frustrating old day, eh, Peter?
Yeah, well, it's yacht racing for you, isn't it? You know, it's definitely very close to being saleable, but probably not quite. You know, definitely looking upwind, it looks a little bit lighter at the top marks. You know, I think even if we could trip the wind limit, it'd be very interesting to see whether we could get around a race in time. But yeah, you can't choose the weather, can you?
Hey, you guys, a little bit off the subject. So, Tokyo Olympics, you guys are going in the 49er. Do you have to physically change before you do that event? You know, how different does your body type have to be from what you do here to go to getting back in a 49er?
Oh, yeah, not too much for us, luckily. Obviously, our roles on this boat aren't too physical, but to sail the 49er, it's a bit harder for us. But yeah, we're pretty much straight back into it after this. So yeah, that'll be fun. But it's been a while since we've been in the Ultra Peace harness, that's for sure.
Would you be sailing a 49er today in this wind strength, or would they be postponing that event too?
Oh, you'd be on the crossover as well. You wouldn't be going very fast.
Hey, boys, and I've been in your position sailing, you know, one of the fastest, coolest boats in the world, and then going back to the 49er, which, don't get me wrong, is a great boat. How do you transition between the two boats, and how do you be competitive in both of them and not be in your 49er wishing you were doing 50 knots?
Well, I think your 49 is obviously pretty dynamic, and you know, the racing's super close. So yeah, definitely, I think, you know, you really enjoy the racing side, and also I suppose, dynamics of a slightly smaller, twitchier boat. But yeah, definitely these boats are pretty incredible to sail as well. So, you know, but that variety is always pretty nice, and you get to sail a few different boats and learn a few different skills as you go.
All right, so back to your boat here, fellas. Time to spill some information. We've been watching you poke around with the clue of your mainsails all day long. Tell us what's going on there. And, you know, you have boat builders back there. Peter, you were even throwing in your 2 cents worth. Tell us what's going on in the back of those sails.
Yeah. Yeah, all good, Ron. Yeah, well, it's not often you actually sit on these boats and don't sail all day. So, you know, we've probably got, I don't know, 30 people out here, more just, you know, looking at every little detail and trying to come up with ways to make it faster. And, you know, there's definitely lots of little mods going on, you know, all over the place to make this boat go faster. But, you know, probably the clue area is one where, you know, we're obviously a little wider than Luna Rossa. So, you know, we thought we might tidy that up a little bit.
And you're still modifying day to day.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think it's no secret that, you know, whoever wins the last race wins the America's Cup, and you've got to keep improving and keep getting better. And we definitely feel like we've improved a lot over the course of these opening races, which has been, you know, really good fun. But, you know, still feel like there's a long way to go. You know, it's a pretty even scoreline. You know, it looks like a 50-50 whether we'll get, you know, one race away today. Obviously, time's slowly going by, but yeah, definitely always trying to make little improvements, whether it's technique or equipment or how you're using something. And yeah, every little detail makes a big difference.
All right, Peter, thanks, Blair. Appreciate your time, buddy. Yeah, that's perfect.
Thanks, mate.
Put on some sunscreen.
Let's take a little bit of time to admire our cockpits here. The shape of our boat is a nice lounger.
And I bet you were the one that put that design brief in, right, Blair?
Yeah. Nothing to do with the aerodynamics, just
the whole purpose of our boat is to be super comfy.
Okay, lads, thanks for your time. Let's hope we get some sort of sailing today. He's a polite young lad. Thank you very much. So let's go around our team and just see what we got, and if we are going to get racing for the 6 p.m. cutoff time locally here on the Waitemata Harbour. First, we'll go to Shirley. Shirley, what are you feeling? You feeling anything today?
I'm amazed how relaxed they all are. It's quite something, isn't it? They're lounging around. Pete made the observation that there's at least 30 of them, and there's more technicians and coaches and specialists out with both teams. I mean, they have the Kiwis have 3 giant ribs, catamaran motorboats full of people, and you know, I think we should mention that this is a brutal schedule, day after day now, with no lay days. It's not just hard for the sailors, but the other guys are working 24/7 to keep that machine up and running and to analyze everything from the day before. So it's a marathon, that's for sure, for everyone involved. Yeah, the conditions. The clouds have come over, which is a slight concern, but conditions are slightly better. We're just touching 6 knots, so it's not over yet, Stephen. But yeah, as Pete said, time is starting to tick away.
Loving the enthusiasm from you, Shirley. Let's go up high on Heli 1, Anderson Reggio. Can you give us your thoughts on any potential sailing before 6?
It's looking pretty marginal at the moment, Stephen. It looks like it's gone a little left, and the streaks down the course definitely have gotten a little bit bigger. Shirley's right. These clouds coming in from the southeast might be making things a little bit difficult for us, but yeah, I'm always an optimist. I'll hold out hope till the very last moment out here.
So that's a boat that you could say is generating some of the clouds that we're seeing around the place on this course. Isn't that beautiful? There are some beautiful crafts out there, aren't there?
All shapes and sizes. Having fun. At least they're having fun, but you see a few people starting to poke back towards the harbor.
A couple of jet skis there with some foiling boards. I bet you they're keen to get them going and get ripping around.
The only person that got excited about foiling boards was you, Nathan. You're going, get me out of my foiling boards, heading towards 5:30 local time. Emirates Team New Zealand's Josh Jr. and Andy Maloney are ranked amongst the best Finn sailors in the world. The two teammates have their hearts set on representing New Zealand at the Tokyo Olympics. There's just one problem. There's only one spot left in the sailing team. Yes, it probably feels a bit awkward, but there's no ill will in the fight to secure that last spot.
Andy and I are campaigning the Finn towards Tokyo, and we're both striving to achieve that one goal of winning a gold medal.
Josh has got a heap of sailing talent. He's definitely a weapon physically, as well as, you know, he's got the sailing feel and the technique and the tactics down pat. Definitely a strong competitor and a really good mate.
I was one of his groomsmen at his wedding. We're best friends in the team. We train together. We probably see each other every day. We wouldn't do it by ourselves. We wouldn't be as good as we are by ourselves, so we see it's the only way to get better. At the end of the day, only one of us will get to go. But our sort of philosophy on that is the one that gets to go might as well do the best he can. And, you know, for one of us to go and win the gold medal, we need to work together along the way. It'll be tough for the person who doesn't get to go, but you just want to try and win that gold medal for the country, so whoever is doing the best at the time should go.
I think the Finn definitely complements us racing in the America's Cup. We're overseas competing against some of the best sailors in the world, racing in really high-pressure environments.
I think it's really important that a few of us are doing the Olympic campaigns. It keeps our racing level real high, it keeps us switched on, it keeps us thinking about tactics, it keeps us sailing at a really high level. You'll see a lot of Finn sailors have transferred to the America's Cup, and I think that's because they're generally bigger and stronger, so they're well suited to the grinding role.
For myself, there's definitely the most high-pressure situations is in the Olympic environment. So that's really going to help us tenfold when we come to the America's Cup and we have to perform under pressure in our home country.
The Olympics is really the pinnacle of, you know, yacht racing, and to be competing at that level the whole time, you know, brings a lot back to the Cup as well.
And then the Cup definitely helps the Finn sailing. You know, we sail really fast on the Cup boat and decisions have to be made really quickly. So that sort of helps our decision-making process in the Finn. And then also the physical side of it. The Finn's a really physical boat, and so is the America's Cup. Going down wind-free pumping the Finn, our heart rates are in L5 the entire run. That directly translates to having a good lung capacity in the Cup as well. So they definitely both help each other, and it keeps it fresh.
It's good to have some really powerful grinders on the boat, but there's also a lot of sailing that needs to be done. So we need to find that balance between power and some people that can go sailing. The guys that we do have that are super powerful, they're also really, really top sportsmen. They've all won Olympic medals. Mentally, they're right at the top of the game and they know how to win. So they bring that aspect to the team as well. So it's really about finding, you know, really talented people that are strong and fit, that bring different dynamics to our team.
It is coming up to 5:33 local time. We've just had an update from race management. They are trying their best to get a race start, at least one race, which will be race 7. They have advised us that potentially it is 5:55, a start at 5:55. If the wind range doesn't play ball, racing will be abandoned for the day. So right now, hang on. 5:55, the last possible time for today of racing in race number 7. We have been looking at stories about the Olympians that are wanting to get to the Tokyo Olympics. We have 2 Olympians actually and they're both gold medalists, of course. Nathan Outteridge and our very own Shirley Robertson. And Shirley Robertson, I've got to ask you this, Shirley, the idea of being an Olympian and then going and winning a gold medal. Talk to us about that, because what's that process like? And the payoff must be amazing emotionally.
Oh, well, that's a big question, Stephen. I mean, I'm very aware that lots and lots of sailors try, lots of athletes try, and it doesn't happen. So I'm sure Nathan will agree. It's a massive sense of relief when it does, when it all comes together. I mean, a bit like the Cup. You know, lots of things have to line up at the right time for it to happen, but it's a pretty special moment when you stand on the top of the podium and hear your national anthem. it's incredible. It's quite noisy here. I don't know if you can hear the spectators that are staying around to the very end. They're they're flying flags. They're singing and dancing. They're having a great time. But yeah, the Olympics is special. And interestingly, in the Finn, obviously Giles Scott, who we talked about a lot earlier with Ineos, is a current gold medalist, and I know he left Auckland really quickly to get back into training. So that's going to be a hotly contested medal, hopefully when it all happens this summer in Tokyo.
So I can attest, you know, I've seen Josh Jr., there's a local coffee shop around the corner. I've seen Josh and Andy hanging out and having coffee together in the morning. But Nathan, I can't believe that when it push comes to shove and one of those guys has to go to the Olympics, you've been there at the highest level. Isn't one of them going to want to just do anything possible to beat the other guy? This is all sounds great right now because they're teammates, but at some stage, you just want to pop the guy, right?
Yeah, crunch time is coming. You know, the motto a lot of Olympic sailors take, and a lot of sailors in general, is that you need to work with the best in the world to get better. And you're just trying to outdo each other every step of the way. But there is a moment where selection happens. And when selection happens, there's no love lost on the water. And between those two, whenever that selection event happens, which will be after the Cup, I don't think Yachting New Zealand have decided that yet, or maybe they have and we're not aware of it. But whenever that happens, that race is going to have some fireworks in it.
No coffee that morning between the two of them, I can tell you that.
Wow, you know what, just remind me, listening to Nathan describe that, why he probably won a gold medal. It was take no prisoners. I mean...
Well, I think Shirley has the reputation of anybody in this room of the take no prisoners. Shirley, and I mean that with all wonderfully due respect.
I don't know what you're saying,
Oh,
Henry,
jeez,
about me.
Goodness.
I guess, I mean, I had the reputation really of, I guess, no stone unturned. I mean, I always wanted to arrive on the racetrack, having stacked the odds in my favor with the fastest boat. And and so I trained harder than my opposition, longer hours, and definitely worked hard for my medals. But the worst thing would be to have a lot of what ifs, you know, not to put maximum effort into it. There's a lot of Olympians here, you know, extraordinary achievements. I'm just thinking about, you know, Pete and Blair. They not only won the last America's Cup, they won a gold medal in Rio, and they nearly won the Volvo Ocean Race. You know, it was so close. It was all in the very last short leg into the finish in Holland. I mean, you were really versatile talent, and bringing that experience from the Cup, that coolness, that decision making, that ability to progress every day. I mean, even to use the time today when they're hanging about to think about improvements is so impressive. And you kind of wonder what else they're going to do. I mean, extraordinary talents. And that talent throughout the realms of our sport.
We are lucky to have gold medalists bound to this commentary team. Nathan Outridge, I've always wanted to know, when you get the gold medal placed around your neck, what's your first thought? Who do you think, or what do you think of?
Well, I'm in a team spot. I was sailing with a guy called Ian Jensen. We did 2 Olympics together, getting a gold and a silver medal. And I think the first thing that happens when you win the race on the water is you get relief. And you look at your buddy and you go, we did it. You know, there's a lot of hard work, there's a lot of effort, and then you think about who supported me along the way. Your coaching, your family, your friends, everyone who's come to watch you at these big events. And then when you get on the podium, it's much more of a celebration. It's more about the moment and just enjoying it. And, you know, I've stood on the podium with Goobs, my buddy, and I've stood next to Pete and Blair, once above them and once below them. And we've been training partners with those guys, you know, in the lead up to the London Olympics, and to be able to stand with competition that you respect, nothing beats that feeling. And that's why people come back every 4 years to the Olympics to do it. And that's why people come back to do the America's Cup, that feeling of accomplishment and ultimately, I think, relief that, you know, you put in the hard work and you were able to deliver. And it's a feeling that all people in sport and sailing, they strive for that.
Nice. We are potentially heading towards a race start that these fans have been waiting for all afternoon, wherever they're Viewing platform is around this harbour. We're hoping for a race start potentially at 5:55 local. No one's moved from the America's Cup Village. They are still there and waiting. So we're going to give them some racing, and you, wherever you are watching around the world. We'll go back to race 6 yesterday.
Few seconds late by the Italians, and all of a sudden tight right behind, and you would think in a reasonably good position. They have to choose on Emirates Team New Zealand. Do they want to lead back or do they want to push? And they've decided to push.
Power up, ragazzi. Yeah, we'll be good here. Watch the boundary. Spanner. Thanks for doing. He's rounding up now on the 2 boards. We're coming down. You'll see him there. We're late by the pin. Yes. Happy to come out relatively fast and forward. Good answer. Right on pin time too. Good call if you want to hang high through high. We're to go through the gas now. Yes. Too early for the pin, guys. It's still early here. Yep. Pick up here. Nice.
So he didn't lead back. He decided to stay up high and keep it on the foils, and he's looking safe. He's not going to get shut out there. It's a question of can they pull the trigger and come rocketing off this line. Luna Rossa look like they are really struggling down there to me at the moment.
Struggling to get going there. Okay, a little bit transition
Coming in with heat right now. Looks like they're going to try to just roll right over the top. Luna Rossa looks late.
Very late, I think, yeah.
Winding up.
Wow.
Trimming up here. Sound like a start. Nice, mate.
The start of race number 6 in the match, and just when Emirates Team New Zealand needed to execute a good start, they've done the job. They need the win to stay in the match. Here we go. It's time to bring the heat.
Two things happened there. Pete Burling nailed it, and Jimmy Spittle got it completely wrong. I wonder, Shirley, if it went soft in the starting box or if the wind shifted left, because that was very, very strange to see Luna Rossa so late after they got to choose when to go back.
Nathan, well, Freddie spotted it from the helicopter. It's really, really patchy now. It's down to sort of 6-7 knots at the bottom of the course. Just really bad timing from the Italian outfit. They came round and just sat in a real light spot and never got going.
He's soft out of this, obviously.
Power up, yeah.
Freddie, you're up in the chopper. You would have had a great bird's eye view of that. Do you think part of that would have been the fact that they jibed and sailed through the gas of the boats?
Yeah, there was a bit of that. Nate, the standout thing for me in that pre-start is when Luna Rossa turned down in the box their mainsail, right above their mainsail, and it was twisted the wrong way. They basically weren't powered up as they were going into the bottom of the box, and you could just see the speed unwinding on the boat. You could hear the mainsail trimmer saying, power up, power up, power up. He talked about the runner, and it just unwound from that point. They never got back on their feet.
Land at 55 here.
We're quite late in the day, Kenny, and you know, this is Nathan's backyard. This is where he plays most days when he's at home, and this time of day, you know, it just starts to get really unstable, very patchy. You know, the lower wind speed is getting lower all the time, although we're still up, top speed still at 9 knots, so just up and down, more unstable than we've seen before.
Emirates Team New Zealand in a race they need to win to stay comfortably in this America's Cup match have executed a strong start, and on the first leg they will head into the top gate with a sizable advantage. Make no bones about that, it's a sizable advantage on Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. They will lead around that top gate. You do have to ask the question, Kenny, when you think you need to put the hammer down, as Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli could have, they've dropped the ball.
Yeah, but I go back to what Freddie told us with that really great observation from the helicopter and how the mainsail did not pop. There could have been some sort of power plant problem there, and we'll have to find out.
Pretty Steady, same.
It's interesting to me that the Kiwis have been a little rough around the edges with their sailing. And boy, if I were the Italians, I'd be thinking we're missing an opportunity to try to really end this early before these guys get sharper, don't you think?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, I wouldn't go as far and say the Kiwis are rusty, but you can tell they have not raced all summer like the Italians have. And it just the nuances of it, you know, just the positioning and the timing. You know, it's split seconds, and, you know, that's every race that goes by. Glenn said it this morning. You know, every race that goes by, they're just getting better and better and sharper and sharper. So I think you're absolutely right. Missed opportunity.
Emirates Team New Zealand have responded as they go down that bottom gate for the first time.
Good. About 20 seconds. Up a couple feet. Yeah, just trying to get through this line.
Shirley Robertson out on chase one. Shirley, if you're Luna Rossa, what are your options right now?
Well, keep going, hope for the best. I mean, we've been watching the Kiwis a lot, Stephen. When they're off on their own, they look so slick. They're sailing like a small foiling boat, like a moth, you know, heeled on top of them, bow down. They just really look like they just get going and get rumbling once they get free of the competition. It's so impressive.
5 away from their feet. 3, 2, 1. How we should lift.
A minute and 7 seconds was the last advantage.
Yeah, this is about to turn into a really big lead here.
Up on here, 5, -3 on hill. Definitely better pressure on that.
Closing on 820 metres between the two as we're about to complete leg number 4 in this 6th race of the 36th America's Cup, and it is Emirates Team New Zealand. You can imagine the noise being made on those spectator boats that are sitting outside a cracking virtual ice stadium. And Emirates Team New Zealand complete the 4th leg and will head up for the second to last time. Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli about to complete the 4th leg. And the gap has lengthened somewhat on the downward leg in favour of Emirates Team New Zealand. The gap now 1 minute and 13 seconds. Let's go up to Heli 1 because Freddie, the last time we spoke to you, said there were big patches of nothingness. What are you seeing now?
Yeah, those patches of nothingness are still there, and it's still the top right-hand side of the course that poses that risk to the boats where Emirates Team New Zealand have just tacked. I've just slipped into spying mode a bit up here, which is great for me, and I was watching both boats tack, and I saw the 2 aft grinders on board Emirates Team New Zealand spin round, and it looks like they're flying the boat to me. I think that's Andy Maloney and Josh Jr., and as a grinder, to think that you go around the leeward mark, your max heart rate, trimming everything on, they say stand by tack, and you have to completely decompress and then fly that boat in the turn. That was pretty awesome to see from up here.
As they head into the top gate for the final time and look towards that homeward leg. Emirates Team New Zealand trailing by a race win. And on the current scale of what we're watching, they should level this race up. Around the top mark they go.
That was a day of 2 halves, wasn't it? That easy, that second.
Emirates Team New Zealand come across the line, and we're still locked up in this match. It is now 3-all between Emirates Team New Zealand and Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli.
100 metres straight in front of us. Yeah. Nice work, fellas. Good comeback. Go on, boys.
So as you can see, not too much happening out on the Waitemata Harbour today. Day 4 of racing. Well, no racing, because as you can see, there will be no racing. Race 7 and race 8 have been called for the day because we didn't get any racing, so we can all start thinking about tomorrow, another day, and the word is there is going to be better and more encouraging conditions for that. Oh, just like that, folks have said, well, time to go home, but they've had a good time, and I trust they've enjoyed what we have been able to deliver to you. Time to go and just check. There they go. Those magical boys are on their way home as well. They take an age to get home too, to tow those things. All righty, let's check in with the whole team. First of all, Shirley, no racing today. It was always going to be a tough ask, I think, in the end, if we were all honest with ourselves. But now we've got to refocus toward tomorrow. What do you think both teams will be thinking about?
Oh, Stephen, certainly the tension's ratcheting up, isn't it? I mean, it's another night of restless sleep for everybody, another night in the shed prepping the boat, so it's spot on for tomorrow. But the forecast is good, as you said, and, you know, we should be good for 2 races tomorrow, and can't wait to get back out here. Up high in the sky, Anderson Reggio from American Magic, their testing manager. Anderson, so if you were thinking about this and you guys weren't racing, what would you look at this as not necessarily a bonus for not racing, but what would you be thinking heading towards tomorrow now?
Well, I'm sure the whole time when we were sitting in delays, they had guys ashore continuing to pour through all the data from the racing that we've seen so far, and I'm sure that they're all going to try to put those lessons to work tomorrow. More time to look at it all and learn, and tomorrow they get to apply, still tied.
Thanks for your thoughts, Anderson. Trust you had a good time up high too.
Can't beat the view up here, guys. It's amazing.
Pleasure having you with our company. All right, Kenny, Nathan, so we now have to reset. Everybody has to reset. Forecast, we hear for the next 3 days is good. So let's just say we're going to have racing. There's still 4 races to win. Still 4 races for one team to win.
So let's define good. Let's talk about the weather here for a second. The weather has dominated the day. We talk about weather, and right now, Nathan and I just had a good look at this, and it looks like we could see kind of 10 to 14 tomorrow. Next day could be even windier. We could have 3 windy days coming up. I wouldn't call it windy yet, but for Nathan, are we seeing a switch in who the favorite may be if all of a sudden the bottom end is 12 knots? And we saw some 20s in the forecast.
Well, the rumor has it that this boat here, Emirates Team New Zealand, has boat speed when it gets windier. We haven't seen any wind yet of over about 12, 13 knots. First day was the windiest we've had, and boats look pretty even on that day. Tomorrow is looking like that 12, 14 knot wind range. It's northeast direction. Most likely we'll go back out to Corsair. Not very shifty, probably be a bit more about the starts. But what I'm seeing in the forecast is this shift to the west, the breeze coming off the land. As soon as it comes off the land here, the wind starts to shift around. We get gusts, we get lulls, left and right shifts, the racetrack opens up. And if the breeze does get windier, we're going to get to find out which boat is a bit quicker when it's windy. We haven't seen that yet. We don't know who's going to be quicker, and the whole world wants to know which one's going to go better when it's windier.
If we take speed out of it, and if we talk this thing about shifty conditions, have you seen these 2 boats? Who's the better in shifty conditions?
Well, they're both a bit of tactician by committee. Neither of them really have a set tactician. You hear a lot of voices on the Kiwi boat, and we've certainly heard several voices on this boat as well. It's not like the British boat where there was one tactician. So I say kind of like the boat speed, that's yet to be determined. I just think this is a whole nother wind range that we need to find out. The world really doesn't know who the favorite is in a breeze. We've been surprised so far. But Nathan, it also may bring something else into play. Every one of these sailors says, these boats over 17, I don't care how practiced you are, they're hard to sail. Like a major handful. So we could actually see mistakes, but we've seen perfect racing so far. That's why there's no, by the way, folks, that's why there's no passes right now. We have 2 similar boat speeds. We have perfectly sailed boats. Maybe we're getting in a position where we get some mistakes back in the action, and then that starts creating some passing.
Yeah, Kenny, it's an interesting point. The boats have been racing in what, let's say, easy conditions. Stable, conditions, 10, 12 knots, boats foiling quite happily. If it comes off the land and it starts shifting around, it gets a bit trickier. And, you know, if you asked before, Stephen, about the personnel on board and who's going to be happier when it gets shifty, I've raced a lot against Peter Burling, and when the breeze gets a bit shifty, he's a seat-of-the-pants kind of sailor. Glenn Ashby is the same. He's grown up in Bendigo on a lake. These guys love that shiftier conditions, the unpredictable nature of the weather, and if they get that, it might be just a little bit of a strength there.
Okay, so, and let's go down the Peter Burling theme, because this is something that has been raised about having home water advantage, knowing the conditions, knowing the waters. Is that such a thing at this level?
It is 100% a thing at this level. They talk about the All Blacks having the advantage at Eden Park, but it's the same football field. It doesn't change wherever you go in the world. When you're at a sailing venue, it's about the weather, it's about the currents, it's about the headlands. These guys have sailed there their entire lives. Don't get me wrong, Jimmy Spittle's been here and Francesco's been here too, but these guys sail here nearly every day of their life.
I can just say from experience, any of you guys want to show up in Narragansett Bay back in Rhode Island, I'll take you on right off of Newport. You know, that's just a comfort zone, right? That's where you grew up. There's not many wind conditions I haven't sailed back in Newport and Narragansett. So it's a comfort level that when you're out there every day, you see nuance that you can't see just by showing up and trying to sail a couple week regatta.
So what you're saying right now, and I know if you were going to make a headline, no racing on day 4, all works into favour potentially of the home team.
You just said that.
It was a terrible headline, to be honest.
I think the headline is, change of conditions anticipated. Are we going to actually see a speed difference? We really haven't yet. Change of conditions, change of you know, are we going to see somebody start to dominate? Because right now, as the scoreline has determined, there is nobody dominating.
But far from the fact that there's no domination, it has been. It's cool. It's intense. Everybody's still looking at this and seeing what's going to happen.
This towing in is the coolest part of the day today. That still kind of blows me away every time we see that.
Okay, so race day 5, we should have some race. Let's take a look at the standings and just remind you of where we are and the whole idea, because we do know it's. That's okay. We'll come back to that in just a moment, because I tell you what, you got to. This sort of the fascinating thing, and you were on American Magic. And you watch this happen, how quickly they just jump up and away they go.
Oh, within 5 seconds. I was standing next to Terry Hutchinson on a rubber boat, the tow boat, and all of a sudden that thing pops out of the water and big smiles all around every time it happens.
So we look forward to day number 5 and finally getting races underway, so long as Mother Nature plays ball. Just a reminder where we are in this 36th America's Cup match. We are locked at 3 race wins apiece, and it's quite simple. The first team to 7 wins the America's Cup. So tomorrow, we hopefully will be racing. And this is what will happen. Race 7, we'll see Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli on port entry, and Team New Zealand on starboard. And then they'll change that over for race number 8. So we have confirmed that these teams will race. The weather looks so much better, and everybody wants to see speed. They want to see them up with their forwards. They want to see potential mistakes. The Mother Nature challenge them, Nathan.
I think the Mother Nature's going to play ball tomorrow, and we're going to get some great racing in, and make sure you come and join us tomorrow.
12 to 14 out of the northeast. So we always knew today was going to be the tough day, but it looks like the next 3 are going to bring some pretty exciting conditions.
Are you excited, lads?
Yeah, of course we're
Wind,
excited.
speed, racing.
We're in New Zealand watching the coolest boats in the world go sailing. So even on a down day like this, there's something to look forward to.
So no racing on day number 4 of this 36th America's Cup as the boats head back into their bases and the spectator fleet, well, they had a good day anyway, and they'll head back in safely as well. And that's a day of non-racing, but so much to look forward to. Day number 5 is just around the corner for the 36th America's Cup.
Today's America's Cup Racing is brought to you by Prada.